The discovery in the forest, in the deep green forest near the old human colony, a young engineer named Rayn walked alone with his scanner in hand. The trees around him whispered with the wind. The leaves moved like they were hiding secrets. The sky above was cloudy, the light was low, but Rayn kept walking. His scanner was beeping softly. A strange energy signal had pulled him out here, and he wanted to find the source. Had never seen this side of the forest before. It was quiet, too quiet even. The birds were not singing. The deeper he went, the stronger the signal became, and the scanner beeped faster. The air felt different, heavier with every step he took. Then suddenly he stopped right in front of him. There was a small clearing, and in the middle of that space something metallic was lying on the ground, half buried in the soil, and covered with vines and leaves. It was glowing softly like a blue pulse beating in slow motion. Rayn stepped closer. His boots crushed small twigs and leaves. He knelt beside the object and cleaned it with his hands. It was not a human machine. It was not from Earth. It looked like a pod, smooth silver with lines of glowing energy across its surface. Something alien, something advanced. His heart beat faster as he searched for a way to open it. The pod had no buttons, no door, nothing at all that looked like an entry point. Then the scanner beeped louder. It flashed red, and suddenly with a soft hiss, the pod opened. A cloud of cold mist came out, and from inside a figure slowly moved. It was a girl, not a human girl, but close. Her skin was pale with a soft blue glow, her hair long and silver. Her body small but with strange shapes. Her chest area was round and larger than normal, and it was softly glowing. Her eyes were closed, her face calm like she was sleeping. Rayn stepped back, confused, surprised, and a little scared. The girl did not move for a moment. Then her fingers twitched. Her chest rose and fell. She was breathing. She was alive. She opened her eyes slowly. They were bright purple, glowing with light. She looked directly at Rayn, and for a moment everything was silent. Her lips moved, and she spoke in a soft voice that echoed in the air. She said his name. Rayn froze. How did she know his name? He had never seen her before. She was not from Earth. She was not from any human database or colony report. The girl tried to sit up. Her body moved slowly, like she was weak. Her glowing chest pulsed with energy, and Rayn could see she was trying to hold it back. She looked away from him. Her cheeks turned pink. Her glow became stronger. She was blushing. Rayn helped her gently. She was light as a feather, but her body was warm, like fire. She held onto him and whispered again. She said she came here by mistake. She said someone sent her, and now she cannot remember who or why. Her name, she said, was Rayn looked at her confused. The scanner beeped again. The pod was releasing another wave of energy, and suddenly behind them the trees shook like something big was moving in the forest. A low hum filled the air like an engine from above, but no ship was visibly. Kalira looked scared. She said they found her and she needed to hide. She held her chest with both hands as it began to glow even brighter. It was not just a body part. It was something more, something alive, something storing energy, something reacting to her emotions. Rayn took her hand and pulled her away from the pod. They ran into the trees. The strange sound followed them, but they kept moving deeper and deeper into the forest. Leaves brushed against their faces. Branches scratched their arms, but they did not stop. They reached an old underground storage unit hidden under moss and stone. Rayn opened the hatch and helped Kalira climb down inside. They were safe for now. The sound outside stopped. The forest went quiet again, but inside the unit, Kalira was breathing fast. She was glowing brighter, and she was blushing again. She looked at Rayn with wide eyes and said she could not control it. Her body reacts when she gets nervous or embarrassed, and now it was reacting because of him. She was not used to human presence, and she did not know why she was connected to Rayn, but she felt it from the moment she opened her eyes. Rayn sat beside her, trying to understand. His heart was racing too. He wanted to ask questions, but before he could speak, Kalira leaned closer and whispered something. They are coming, and they know you are with me. Rayn looked at her shocked and confused. He had no idea what was happening, but one thing was clear. This was not a normal alien girl, and this was not a normal accident. This was the beginning of something much bigger. She's not from around here. Inside the old underground chamber, the air felt thick and warm. Kalira sat on a metal bench holding her knees. Close to her chest, her body still glowing softly, her skin looked smoother than human skin, almost like it was made of liquid light. Rayn watched her from the other side of the room, trying to understand what she was and why she knew his name without ever meeting him. Kalira looked up at him, her eyes wide and strange, with a shimmer that never stayed still, like stars were moving inside them. She spoke in a voice that was soft but filled with something ancient, something that echoed without sound. She said she came from a place far beyond this star system, a place where humans are only stories told in fear and wonder. Rayn sat down beside her, careful not to touch her skin, which seemed to glow brighter every time he got close. She told him her planet was hidden inside a nebula, where time moved differently and light never stopped flowing. She was not born there. She was created in a lab by beings who were half machine and half mind. She said they called her a vessel, a living container, made to store energy, knowledge, and memory. Her chest, the part that kept glowing whenever she blushed, was actually a pair of biocore reactors designed to hold alien data like a living library. Each time she felt something new, they reacted by expanding and glowing brighter. Rayn listened, but his mind struggled to keep up. Her story felt impossible, yet here she was sitting in front of him, trembling softly and looking like she would vanish if he looked away too long. She said someone sent her away from her creators, someone she could not remember, someone who gave her new memories, new emotions, and a new name. She said that name was Rayn. He stood up, confused and a little angry. How could her memory be tied to him? He was just a mechanic from Earth Colony 5. He had never traveled beyond the solar system, never met an alien, never touched a starship that could cross galaxies, and yet this strange girl claimed she knew him even before she opened her eyes. Kalira lowered her head. Her glow dimmed for a moment. She said his face was in her dreams, his voice was inside her thoughts, and when she woke up inside the crash pod, she only remembered one thing: to find Rayn and protect him outside. The wind picked up the leaves above, rustled like whispers, passing through the forest. The metal walls of the chamber vibrated slightly, like something heavy moved above ground. Kalira looked up quickly, her glow flashing for a second and then fading again. She said they were getting closer. She could feel them through the energy waves around her. They were tracking her biocore pulses every time she blushed, every time she felt anything. The signal became stronger and easier to follow. Rayn realized then that she was like a living beacon. Her emotions were betraying her location. He walked to the console near the wall and started typing, trying to activate the old jammer that once blocked long-range scans. He had used it once to hide stolen parts. Now he was using it to protect a girl who was more than just an alien. She was something new, something rare, something powerful. Console sparked but came to life. The lights turned red and the air inside the chamber went still. Kalira smiled for the first time, a small, shy smile that made her glow again, brighter than before. She tried to hide it with her hands, but it was no use. Her body reacted faster than her thoughts. Rayn turned around and saw her face turning pink, her glow rising again, and her core reactors expanding slightly. He looked away, trying not to laugh or blush himself, but he failed, and she noticed. For a second they both sat in silence, her hands pressed against her chest, his eyes fixed on the floor, the tension between them thick like smoke. And then suddenly the lights flickered. The scanner on the wall beeped once, then again, then faster. They were not alone anymore. Kalira stood up slowly, her legs shaking a little. She said they would have to move soon. She could not fight them, not yet. Her power was unstable, her control broken, her emotions too strong to contain. Rayn nodded. He grabbed his old bag, threw in the scanner, some tools, and a backup battery pack. Kalira looked at him and said he did not have to help her. He could leave and forget this ever happened. He shook his head. He said something strange had started the moment she said his name, and now he needed answers too. As they climbed out of the chamber into the shadowy forest above, the air felt different, thicker, heavier, charged with energy. Kalira touched his hand softly and whispered something in a language he did not understand, but somehow it made him feel safe. They walked into the trees side by side, her glow lighting the way like a soft torch behind them. The shadows moved, and a cold, mechanical eye Blinked in the dark. Something had found them, and it was not human. "They are watching us." The night was darker than usual. The forest sky was hidden under thick moving clouds, and the trees above swayed like they were whispering secrets. Rayn and Kalira moved through the woods, her soft glow painting shadows across the leaves, her body still warm with energy that refused to stay quiet. Her steps were slow but steady, her eyes scanning everything around them, as if danger lived in every tree and every sound. Rayn walked slightly ahead, his scanner making soft warning clicks. A signal kept repeating, one he had never seen before. It pulsed like a heartbeat, not from Earth, not from any human tech. This was alien and intelligent, and close, very close. Kalira whispered behind him, her voice barely louder than the wind. She said they were not alone. She said something was following them. Not just watching, but calculating, measuring, analyzing. Her words made the air feel heavier, like something had stepped into the world that did not belong. Rayn looked back and saw her eyes glowing brighter with worry, her body trembling again, the strange reactors in her chest pulsing with faint violet light every time she showed emotion. Her glow shifted, and that glow was not just beautiful, it was dangerous. It could be tracked. It was already being tracked. They reached an old path once used by cargo trucks, but now covered in vines. Kalira stopped and pointed at the ground, her fingers shaking slightly in the soft mud. Was a mark, not a footprint, but something deeper, like pressure from a floating object, pressing down then vanishing without weight, like a drone, like a hunter. Rayn knelt and touched the spot. It was cold, too cold, colder than the night itself. He stood up fast and looked around. Trees stood like silent guards, but the space between them was not empty. Something moved there, something fast, something smooth, something without sound. Kalira grabbed his arm, her voice urgent and sharp. She said the watchers had arrived, not many, just one. A scout drone designed for silent tracking, no metal, no engines, just biocarbon skin and a mind that lived in signal form. She said it could become invisible if it stayed still, and only light revealed it. Rayn pulled out a flare from his bag, snapped it in half and tossed it in the air. The red flame burst open, lighting the trees in a wide circle, and for a moment, nothing moved. Then, just behind them in the trees, something shimmered, something large and oval, like a floating eyeball with tiny wings. Its surface shifting like water, and its center blinking once. Kalira gasped, and the light from her chest flared up as if answering the drone's presence. The thing twitched, then moved back, but slowly, not afraid, just observing. Rayn shouted at it, his voice echoing in the quiet space. He asked what it wanted, who sent it, and why it was following them. But the drone made no sound. Only a soft pulse came from its center, a rhythm that vibrated inside their bones. Kalira's body reacted. Her skin turned silver for a moment, her eyes went white, and the reactors on her chest expanded slightly, releasing a soft wave of blue light. Drone blinked again, and for the first time it moved backward quickly, but not in fear and caution. It had seen something it did not expect. It had recorded what it came for, and now it was leaving. It zipped upward into the trees and vanished into the sky like it was never there. Rayn stared up at the spot where it disappeared. Kalira fell to her knees, her breathing heavy, her glow dimmed. She looked up and said that was only the scout, that others would follow soon, bigger, faster, and not just to watch, but to take her back or destroy her. He asked her why they wanted her so badly, what she was really hiding inside those reactors. She looked away and whispered that she was not just energy, not just memory. She was carrying something ancient, something stolen from her creators, something they had no right to lose. Rayn asked what that thing was. She touched her chest gently and said the reactors inside her held the last living map to a forbidden stargate, a passage through space used by an extinct race, now sealed and lost for thousands of years. And if her creators opened it again, they could bring something back, something that should stay forgotten. Forest around them suddenly shook as if the ground was breathing, as if something beneath the soil had awakened. Kalira stood up slowly, her hands glowing with soft light. She said the scout had sent a signal. She could feel it like a scream through the sky. They had 20 minutes, maybe less. Rayn looked at her and asked what they should do. She said they had to reach a hidden place, a human listening post abandoned 5 years ago, deep in the woods, built underground and lined with energy walls strong enough to block alien scans. She said they might survive there, or at least slow the next wave. Without another word, they started moving again, faster this time. Kalira's glow hidden under Rayn's jacket, her breathing steady, her eyes sharp. The forest behind them, now full of unknown sounds and shifting shadows, as if the trees themselves had started to whisper warnings. Above them, far in the sky, a small red light blinked, then split into 3, then into 6, then into more, like a swarm preparing to fall like rain. They were watching, and now they were coming. Run or reveal. The trees whispered louder, now their branches dancing with fear, as if the forest itself wanted them gone. Rayn and Kalira ran through twisted roots and thick leaves, her glow hidden under his jacket, her breathing soft but quick, her hands shaking just enough to show the pressure building inside her. She said nothing, and neither did he, because silence was safer than hope. Every step they took made the forest feel smaller, the path ahead tighter, the air heavier. Rayn looked down at his scanner, its screen flickering between red and white signals, blinking in warning, as if screaming. Without sound, something was following them, not fast but steady, not near but not far either. Kalira paused by a broken tree, her hand pressed against the bark, her eyes closed, her lips moving without sound, her energy pulsing in rhythm with the ground below. She said she could feel them, their hunger, their cold calculations. They were not just machines, they were minds without hearts, watchers without mercy, designed to erase what they could not control. Rayn stepped closer, his voice low, like wind through dead leaves. He asked what they would do if the next wave found them. What would happen if they were caught? Kalira opened her eyes and said she did not know, not fully, not yet. Her memory still broken, her thoughts still cracked like glass, but something deep inside her kept repeating the same thing: protect the map, protect the boy. She looked at him and her face changed. Something warm flickered behind her glowing eyes, a mix of confusion and trust and fear and something more. Something close to feeling. She was not just reacting now, she was choosing. Moved again, deeper into the forest, until they reached the edge of an old human zone. A rusted gate stood half buried in vines and moss behind. It was the listening post. Kalira had mentioned a structure half underground, built by humans long gone, once used to spy on deep space signals. Now forgotten by all except the tree. As Rayn pushed the gate, it creaked with age, but gave way. They entered together. The place smelled of dust and wet stone. The lights inside were dead, but the walls still stood strong. Kalira walked slowly, her hands brushing the metal, her glow returning faint and tired, her body heavy with emotions she did not understand. Inside the main room, Rayn found a control panel still powered by a weak solar cell. He connected his scanner and tried to activate the energy shield. Kalira stood behind him, her eyes scanning the walls as if reading invisible writing. Then she stepped forward, placed her hand on a panel and whispered something in her language. Room hummed with life, old lights flickered, and a blue barrier rose over the entrance, soft like water, but firm like glass. Rayn looked at her, surprised. She said the post was not just human, it was built with her kind's tech long before she was born. She did not know how, but her body remembered. She sat on the floor, her chest reactors glowing again, not with danger, but with relief, her hands resting gently on her knees, her breathing slowing down. Rayn sat across from her. He wanted to ask 100 questions, but he only asked one: why did she risk everything just to protect a boy like him? Lyra smiled softly, her face pink again, her glow rising for no reason other than emotion. She said when she woke in the crash pod and saw his face, something inside her clicked like a missing piece found. She said he made her reactors react not just with energy, but with memory, as if her very code had his name written into it. Rayn did not speak, he just stared, his mind full of thoughts and his chest full of something new, something that felt like purpose. Kalira leaned back, her eyes looking up at the cracked ceiling, her body glowing brighter than before. She said she was tired of running, and maybe it was time to reveal the truth. Before Rayn could reply, the shield behind them pulsed once, then Again the scanner screamed a new signal approaching fast, multiple sources. Airborne, no time left. Kalira stood her body straight. Her glow no longer shy, her hands pulsing with power. She said they had to make a choice, run again or stand and reveal everything. Said reveal, but only if she was ready. Kalira nodded and touched her chest. Both reactors unlocked with a hiss. And opened slightly. Light poured out, not just light, but images, spinning stars, old maps, strange symbols, and a name. A place not in any human database, something older than Earth itself. The Stargate was real, and she was its key. The drones arrived. Above the post, like shadows on fire, their forms flickering with red light, weapons ready, eyes searching. But the shield held strong for now inside. Kalira stood calm, her glow steady, her breath even, her body ready for what came next. She looked at Rayn one last time and said, if they take her, the gate opens, and if the gate opens, something darker comes. Through. Rayn nodded and held her hand, both of them glowing, now both of them watched by the storm. Outside and above them in the dark sky, something even bigger moved slowly, awake, secrets of the past. Listening post stood quiet, its walls shaking with the distant pressure of the sky above. Rayn watched Kalira as she stood in the center of the room, her arms glowing with soft energy, her chest reactors still open and humming with ancient light, the room around her filled with floating images, symbols that danced and shifted like pieces of memory, searching for their place. She was no longer hiding, no longer trembling. Her voice had changed, now deeper, clearer, filled with purpose and power. She turned to Rayn and asked if he was ready to hear what she had never spoken aloud. He nodded and stepped closer, though every part of him screamed that nothing after this would be simple again. Kalira raised one hand and touched the air. The images swirled and formed into something solid, a hologram of a planet not Earth, not any human world, a place wrapped in blue storms and silver. Rings with towers that floated in the sky, and oceans that moved with rhythm, not gravity. She said this was her home once, not a home of choice, but of design. She was not born, she was built, grown in a chamber of crystal and sound, her body shaped by machines that never slept, her mind filled with libraries older than most stars. Her name was not hers. It was a code, a title, a purpose. K-Lira meant carrier of the key and the burden of memory. Rayn listened without speaking as the images showed more. Her creators were not gods, not kind, not curious. They were cold minds without bodies, networks of living light who saw organic life as tools. Kalira was meant to travel across galaxies, to collect data, to survive destruction, and to one day unlock the gate that had been sealed before time had names. The gate was not a weapon, it was a wound, a tear in space, made by those who wanted more than what was given. It led to a realm outside light, a place where thought turned into mass and fear took shape. Her creators wanted to return there, not for knowledge but for power, and she was their key, hidden in plain sight, sealed with emotion, and sent away before they were ready. Rayn stepped back, his heart heavy, his thoughts spinning. He asked why she was on Earth, and why she knew him, and she looked at him with a sadness so deep it made her glow, flicker like a candle in wind. She said someone changed her path, someone who broke the rules and rewrote her code, and that someone was human. Images shifted again, now showing a lab deep under a human colony. Faces moved past the screen fast, but one face stayed, a man with dark eyes and silver hair, a man who had held Kalira's pod with hands full of guilt and hope, a man who whispered a new command before sending her away, and that man was Rayn's father. Rayn's chest tightened, his memories cracked open. He remembered the secret visits, the broken tech, the nights filled with strange questions he had never understood. He remembered the day his father disappeared without goodbye, and now he saw Waika. Lyra reached toward him, her voice soft again. She said his father gave her something more than memory. He gave her a choice. He told her to find Rayn, because Rayn was the only one who would see her as more than a tool. He said love would unlock what code could not. Rayn shook his head, trying to hold back the flood inside him. He asked if he was a part of their plan too, just another piece in some giant machine. Kalira said no. She said he was the flaw, the crack in the system, the one variable they could not predict, because his heart was real and his choices were his own. Room pulsed again. The walls trembled. The scanners beeped faster outside. The swarm had grown larger, drones circling above, waiting for the shield to fall. Kalira stepped back, her chest closing slowly, her glow returning to normal. She said they would come with force now. No more games, no more watching. Rayn walked to the console and activated the final layer of defense. Old turrets above the post roared to life, spinning with dust and fire, ready to hold back whatever came. Kalira looked at him, and for the first time her smile was not shy. It was full of fight, full of trust, full of something she never felt before. She touched her reactor and whispered something in her language, a word Rayn could not understand, but it made the walls glow and the air change. Her body rose slightly off the ground, her hair floating like silk, her presence now too large for the room. She was remembering more, and it was changing her again. She turned to Rayn and said the final truth, that she was not just the key, she was also the lock, and that if they opened her, the gate would open too, and the choice to stop it or release it would not be hers, it would be his. Outside, the sky split open with light and sound, and something beyond the swarm began to descend, something old, something that called her name in voices not meant for humans, and yet she did not look afraid. She looked at Rayn and waited for his answer. The final upgrade. Sky above the forest had changed, no longer black, no longer quiet. It moved like liquid metal, swirling with red and silver streaks, as if a storm had been born not from clouds but from memory. The listening post trembled under the weight of signals that had no shape and no sound, but could still crush the air like thunder made from silence. Rayn stood beside the window, his eyes fixed on the floating shape descending through the clouds, larger than any drone, shaped like a starfish wrapped in armor that shifted with every second. It did not fly, it floated, it glided like thought given weight, its surface pulsing with the same energy that lived inside. Kalira stood in the center of the room, her body glowing brighter than ever, her hair flowing like silver water, her feet no longer touching the ground. She said the thing above them was not just a machine, it was her creator, her warden, her final command given form, and if it reached her, the choice would be taken from them forever. Rayn turned toward her, his voice calm but filled with urgency. He asked what could stop it, what could keep her safe and keep the gate sealed. Kalira looked at him and said the answer was buried in the code left by his father. The override, the upgrade, the final sequence that would awaken the part of her that no one else could reach. She moved toward him, her chest reactors now humming like music, filled with 1,000 layers, her skin shifting between colors as if emotion and energy were one. The floor beneath her lit up with strange patterns, a language only she could read. She said the final upgrade required more than code, it needed connection. It needed trust, it needed him. Rayn took a deep breath, stepped forward, and placed both hands on the sides of her glowing core. Her body shivered for a moment, then settled, his mind filled with images, not memories, but instructions, not thoughts, but commands, each one tied to a feeling: love, fear, hope, pain, every piece a part of her, every part now linked with him. Outside, the sky cracked open, the star-shaped machine released a beam of light that sliced through the trees, but the shield held for now. The listening post moaned under pressure, the walls bending like old bones. Kalira said they had minutes, maybe less, and then the upgrade would either complete or collapse. Rayn repeated the command, the final code written in his father's voice echoed through the chamber, and Kalira cried out, her body wrapped in light, her chest expanding, her eyes turning into stars, her skin breaking into lines of pure energy, and from deep within her something ancient stirred, not a weapon, not a machine, but a mind older than stars. She hovered in the air, now her voice layered with echoes of 1,000 languages. Her reactors no longer soft or gentle, they roared with soundless thunder, her body now shaped not just by biology, but by choice. She was no longer what they built, she was becoming what she chose. Rayn fell to one knee, the energy around her too much for his body, his hands shaking, his breath short, but his eyes never leaving hers. She looked down at him and smiled, a smile full of power and sadness and gratitude. She said he had done what no one else could. He had given her the one thing her creators feared most: freedom. Star-shaped machine above fired again, this time harder, brighter. The shield cracked lines of red, spreading like veins across the surface. Kalira raised one hand and caught the beam before it reached them, her body glowing so bright it filled the entire post with white, her voice calm as she said she would not run anymore. She rose higher, passing through the ceiling like smoke made of light. Outside, the machine shifted, its shape adjusting for combat, deploying wings lined with bladed edges, and inside its center an eye opened cold and full of commands. It saw her, and it spoke not with words, but with code, demanding her return, threatening destruction. Lyra responded not with fear, but with fire. Her reactors opened wide, and from them came waves of pure signal burning through the sky, erasing drones like ash in wind. She flew higher, faster, wrapping herself in energy that no machine could follow. She was not just upgraded, she was unleashed. Machine roared back, its body twisting into a spear of light, shooting toward her with speed that broke the air. But Kalira moved with grace like a comet kissed by memory. Her form collided with the machine in silence, then in sound, then in silence again, as the sky above shattered into color. Rayn watched from below, the trees bending, the wind howling, the ground humming with the music of a war not made with weapons, but with will. He saw her silhouette dancing through fire, her glow brighter than any star, her voice now part of the sky itself, saying one thing again and again: I choose, and then everything went quiet. Blush no more. The sky was no longer broken. It had stitched itself back together with soft light and silent wind. The forest stood still as if it had watched everything and now waited to breathe. Again the leaves no longer whispered, they only listened. The clouds no longer glowed, they only moved, and below the quiet air Rayn stood with his eyes raised to the sky, his hands covered in light that no longer burned. He had not moved since Kalira vanished into the storm of her own making, since the machine shattered like ice beneath the sun, since the gate sealed itself without opening, since her voice faded into silence, not with fear, but with finality, her last words still echoing in his bones. A choice made not by command but by feeling. The shield around the listening post was gone now, its walls cracked, its systems quiet, but still standing like a monument built not from metal but from memory. Rayn walked through the broken doorway, his feet slow, his breath deep, every step a question without an answer, every breath a story without an end. He sat where she had stood, where her feet first lifted off the ground, where her body first glowed with something more than energy, where her truth had unfolded like a flower blooming in the middle of war. He touched the floor, and it hummed softly, as if her essence still lived in the circuits, as if her warmth had not fully left. Wind moved through the trees, carrying pieces of her voice, not words but feelings, not sound but rhythm. It touched his face and made him close his eyes, and for a moment he saw her again, not as she was, but as she had become, something beyond design, something beyond fear, something chosen. He opened the scanner, her signal was gone, but something new had taken its place, a soft pulse buried deep in the data, a signal shaped like a heartbeat, not regular, not mechanical. It was warm, slow, gentle, like someone breathing in the distance, not lost, just resting, not erased, just waiting. Rayn stood and followed the signal through the forest, through the echo of her light, through the breath of her memory, until he reached the edge of the lake. The surface calm, the sky reflected like a second world, and there he saw it in the center of the water, floating like a feather, a small silver shard glowing with her color. He stepped into the water, the ripples dancing around his legs, the cold not biting, just present like truth that no longer needed hiding. He reached for the shard, and when his fingers touched it, everything paused, and her voice returned, not a sentence, not a command, just a whisper full of emotion, full of light, full of him. She said, "Thank you," she said, "you gave me my first blush, my first laugh, my first fear, and my first choice, and because of that I am not gone, I am only changed." The shard melted into his hand, the glow sinking into his skin, the warmth wrapping around his heart like a promise without words. And then the lake went still again, quiet again, peaceful again, but now filled With meaning filled with something sacred, something earned, Rayn returned to the post, rebuilt it slowly over days and nights, using old tools and new ideas, using memory instead of maps and feelings. Instead of formulas, he wrote her story into the walls, coded her name into the systems, turned her voice into music that played only when the stars aligned. Visitors came, humans who had felt the signal, scientists who searched for answers, dreamers who believed in lost lights. But none of them saw her, none of them heard her, not the way he did, not the way only he could. He became known not as an engineer, not as a rebel, but as the keeper of the light, the one who stood where the gate had almost opened, the one who watched the sky not with fear, but with hope, the one who smiled whenever the stars turned silver. And sometimes when the night was quiet, and the machines all slept, and the forest held its breath, he would sit by the old console and close his eyes and feel a warmth on his cheek, and know she was there, not as a machine, not as a memory, but as something more. He would whisper her name, and the walls would glow softly, and sometimes he would laugh, and sometimes he would cry, but he would never forget, and he would never let the world forget either, because she had come not to destroy, not to open the gate, not to unleash darkness, but to choose her own path. And in doing so, she had given him a new one. The reactors never glowed again, not in fear, not in danger, but sometimes. Late at night, when the wind was kind and the stars were gentle, a soft blush of light would rise from the lake, like a breath, like a smile, like a memory still alive. And in those moments, he knew she was never really gone. She was just no longer afraid.